Sonny, welcome to Resilient Retail. I am so excited to have you on. Just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about Venus ET Fleur and what you do?
Sure. So Venus ET Fleur was founded in 2015 by my wife and co-founder and myself. We specialize in our florals that last a year or longer. Started the brand from a bad experience that two of us had. We were doing long distance dating early on. Valentine's came around. I sent her an arrangement from a local florist, and what was delivered was nothing like what I was expecting. Sparked that moment of just like, I bet this is happening all over the world with so many other people, not just for Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays, anniversaries, whatever it is, And so Seema and I both come from entrepreneurial backgrounds. We work with our families. We've started businesses ourselves. And so, we were just kind of throwing ideas at each other in a way where we just want to kind of impress each other, but also at the same time, her side is really just the look, the aesthetic, the brand, and so on. And so she was putting together all these concepts, and I was like, wow, that's actually beautiful. My strong suit's on the operations end of things. And so, was just sort of talking through ideas together, how we can launch a brand, what the look and style is, what's the shippability, and so on, how we grow it. And, things just moved very quickly for the two of us, both from a personal relationship, but also from a business standpoint. And we launched very quickly. It was a mission of ours to be able to create a product and a brand that really stands behind its product. We innovate and continue to disrupt this space with product that consumers are really after. They're sort of over like the traditional just floral vase that you have to maintain and so on yourself, and really looking for something new. And the industry's been needing that for a while. And we said, you know what, let's do it. So every couple of months we innovate with new products. Seema leads that team. For me particularly, I oversee the operations, the business development side of things, and our marketing. That's really where my strong suit is. My brother's also involved in the business and oversees our retail division of the business and sort of B2B side as well. So that's sort of a little quick intro on the brand and what I do day to day.
My favorite part about this story is that we talk all the time about like founder-led brands being so important. And my listeners know the thing I'm harping on consistently is like, what is the customer experience you're building? And so the fact that the inspiration behind the brand came from a poor experience, I have to assume that thinking about customer experience on all fronts, and this is why I'm excited to talk to you, because a lot of times customer experience, we talk about like on-site or the marketing or the unboxing, but there's also this huge part of customer experience that comes from the operational side. How much do you guys think of customer experience? How big of a pillar is that for the brand?
It's huge for us. It's the first thing we think about for any decision or any idea we have. It's we want to make sure that the customer experience is A grade from beginning to end, right? When they see the product on social media or a friend that received a product, wherever they did see the product, I want them to make sure that they see something that looks beautiful. When they visit the website, they see something that's beautiful. It's easy to navigate through. It really speaks to them about not only the brand, but it sort of storytells as well. From an operational perspective, I'll tell you, it was long nights, sleepless nights early on, trying to figure out how to ship product. Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with product that is out of your control. You create a beautiful arrangement and you pack it perfectly, and then you hand it off to a courier. And that's the person who is delivering your product to your consumer and is that last person to really ensure that the product's going to arrive there perfect. And we went through a lot of testing, different couriers, and finally we're able to narrow it down after a couple of months. And so, from the first time that a customer hears about us until through the entire checkout process, receiving the product, post-purchase follow-ups, all of that is super important in today's day and age. All the packaging, not just the presentation of our product, but also when they receive a shipping box, when they open it, what do they see? Are there instructions on how to unpack it? Are there care instructions? What really goes into it? The experience, every now and then, no matter what brand it is going to deal with some sort of customer issues, right? And so if there's a customer who received a damaged product, an incorrect product, or whatever the case may be, having just, top-notch customer service to be able to assist the customer through solving the problem is very important as well. And that's, again, for any business owner that I speak to and is looking for advice, customer experience is very, very important. And solving that is going to create a lifelong customer for you.
I come from, and Sunny, this isn't something you know about me. It's something my listeners do. I come from a background of customer retention. So I spent 2-3 years literally nonstop talking about that customer experience. So you just said something that like my little retention nerd heart just like beat it out of my chest, because that idea of, you said the customer experience from the first touch point that they hear about us till post purchase and beyond is the entire experience. And you're focusing on every single piece of that. Now, I kind of want to set the stage for the listeners, because this is something that I thought through this morning before interviewing you. And, obviously, product quality was massively important for the brand, if not one of the pillars of the brand. But there's something uniquely challenging that for Venus ET Fleur, that your quality has to go beyond just that product. So, at the inception of e-commerce, I think shopping online was known for being convenient and efficient, but not a luxury experience or product. And obviously consumer behavior has shifted, a lot more trust with e-commerce brands, a lot more trust in luxury products. But you're selling not just a luxury product that needs to have great just product quality, but it's also a perishable product. And like you said, you put risk in the courier. So the operational side of the business, the full customer experience, is arguably just as important, if not even edging onto more important than just the product quality. Tell us about, from the operational side, which I think some people are like, this is the non-sexy side of business. But oftentimes it's kind of what makes the idea like click, is getting that operational side. Tell us about that operational challenge of just getting the operational experience to match, if even beat, the product experience.
Yeah, for sure. Operations is sort of like, when you're working out doing core workouts, you need that. That's going to set up the rest of your body for success, right? And so I think the way that we look at it, our team is pretty deep. We've got a big team. We have a supply chain team who focuses on making sure that we work closely with vendors to get the best of best quality, receiving product to make sure that it's in perfect quality. A lot of people don't know, but all of our designers are in-house as well. And so if you went on our website and you curated an arrangement, you wanted a custom letter K inside of a particular box, shape and size and so on, our designers actually take that and will produce that fresh for you. And so, wow. Not only accounting for bringing in all the materials that we need, the raw materials we need, but also making sure the quality is there, making sure that the product is created as per our requirements and it passes QC. It'll go through several rounds of QC before it actually even gets dispatched through our fulfillment centers, which are also all owned and operated ourselves. So quality is really, really important to us, right? Making sure that all the way through to the customer, when they receive a product, they understand how to care for the product. To your point about like perishability, right? We have a unique formula. So all of our roses are actually fresh, real roses grown in Ecuador. They get cut at their most peak and perfect state. They get treated with a wax-based solution, which allows them to remain in their peak and perfect state for a year or longer. Wow. They go through a dyeing process as well. So majority of our stems go through a dyeing application to get its color. So if you receive a bouquet of ours, you'll see all of the rose colors are almost identical. And so that happens because they're part of the same dyeing batch. There's certain colors that go through a metallic spray application, so our golds and our silvers and so on, but nonetheless still last for the year or longer. And so, making sure that the product is put together perfectly for the customer and they get to experience something that may sound too good to be true in the beginning is something that's really important to us. For me, I'm part of our marketing team as well. And retention to me is something that, to be honest, and as a business owner, you kind of overlook in the beginning. You're like, let me just focus on the new customers. Let me try and just get people in. But yeah. What people need to remember is that, the retention side is extremely important, if not more important. You want to make sure that you get that customer who's experienced your brand to come back. For us, we're in a unique place as well where a lot of our business is gift oriented. And so if you purchase a product for a friend of yours that gets the product, how do we stay in touch with that person? How do we get them to convert into a customer? How do we get to relay their satisfaction to you as a buyer so that you continue to select Venus ET Fleur for your gifting needs Now as a brand, we've branched into Maison. So our home collections, candles and room sprays, how can we educate you of the new products that we have that may not be gift giving, but instead something that you purchase for yourself? And so through all that, retention is extremely important. I'm a huge fan of marketing as a whole and just learning, but retention with all the different sort of touch points that we have today to use, it's amazing what you can do with retention and how you can stay in contact with your customers and continue to just educate them on how the brand is evolving and what product lines are coming out.
Like if I could swoon on a mic, I would put in like a stupid little whoo noise right here because you're saying everything that I'm always saying. I find it really, really interesting that, and I think this is a little bit unique to a very highly luxury brand, is that you are vertically integrated as a brand. Everything from, you said the designers to the fulfillment, it's all owned in-house. How much of that comes down to, I guess the question is like, why is that so important? And does it come down to brand cohesiveness, or is it efficiency, or is it a combination of both?
I would look at it as a combination of both. Touching on quality, it's one of our core principles. And so being able to control every element that you can is important to me. At the end of the day, we're not going to have our own courier network beyond what we have today. We have couriers in-house that'll do local deliveries in sort of, the New York area, LA area, but we're not going to open up our own UPS, right? Yeah. And so anything that we have the ability to control, we want to own and operate fully in-house ourselves. And so, from the farms all the way up through the entire process, all of our staff's in-house working on every element of the business. But then again, working and partnering with couriers is super, super important to us. Early on, when we were growing, it became evident that you need to focus on every area of the business. We were focusing on getting sales. We were focusing on the social media presence. I was building our Shopify website back in the day and dealing with, okay, how do I prevent people from purchasing in certain areas if I'm sold out of product? How do I, there's so many things that you go through. And through the learning pains, you realize that going for customers is great and getting those sales, but then you have to have the fulfillment team in-house to be able to scale up and get that product out. You have to have the customer service team that's in-house to be able to handle any questions or tracking for customers that may not have gotten an email or whatever. And so, there's so many areas of the business that once your business is growing, all of those grow with it as well. And for a brand like ours that there's not so much maintenance behind our product, but it's a product that needs to be in a room temperature environment and so on, away from extreme heat or cold. Our peak holiday, one of our peak holidays is Valentine's Day. And so dealing with winter snowstorms, we literally had to hire somebody who was following forecasts across the nation to understand if things needed to go by ground or by air. If there's a snowstorm in a particular area that might prevent trucks from getting across that snowstorm and a delivery arrives on the 15th of February, well, that gift's no good anymore, right? Yeah. And so it's really important to us to really focus on every area of the business. If we offer date-specific delivery, we want the product to get there for that customer on that particular date.
Did you ever think when starting, at first kind of a direct-to-consumer business, did you ever think one day I'm going to have to hire a storm chaser for this?
It's funny because at first, it wasn't something that you focused on. You kind of overlook it, right? Because you're focusing on so many different things. But I think something that I love about our brand particularly is our team. From day one, even till today, our team is all willing to help out in every area. And so having people in the East Coast and West Coast to just continuously check in, creating a Slack channel that's called Weather Outlook, and having people just be like, hey guys, does anyone see anything that's coming up in the near future that might throw off any of the operations? So really working together was important to us. But no, you don't plan for things like that. You experience it, you recover from it if it impacts the business, and then you inject it into your plans for the following time.
I love it. And I love how helpful these learnings are for, a lot of our listeners are a little bit more small businesses, local retailers. And that's why I love your story too, is because there's this big gifting aspect of it. And a lot of local boutiques really do well on gifting because, if I'm going to gift my mom who lives in Texas something, I actually want her to have a piece of Colorado Springs. I want her to know kind of like where I live. So there's so much crossover here. And you kind of touched on this. I want to dig into it a bit that, an interesting point is that your products are often delivered as gifts. And this is where a local florist shop could be at an advantage over your brand because they can do guaranteed delivery dates. They can do local delivery. Obviously, there's some quality issues that you ran into. And so you guys actually have the ability to guarantee delivery dates. How did you even go about figuring this out when this seems like such an operational task to get over, but feels pivotal to the brand?
For sure. So, earlier on, prior to Venus, I worked with my dad a lot on his brand. And so he had a brick and mortar electronics store. Amazon, eBay had just started to really gain traction. People started shifting to, you don't buy a TV at Best Buy anymore. You go online and you buy it, right? And so I tried to get our family's company onto an e-com platform. And so was building that out. I was handling a lot of the shipping. And so I understood UPS really well, from what services do they offer, what days are they delivering on, what do costs look like between different services for next day air, Saturday delivery, what does all of that look like, right? And so for us, like when we went into the business, date specific delivery, it was very manual. It was people that selected, I went into Shopify, added one of those apps that allowed me to add a text field, and it just said, what day would you like this product delivered on? And I would have our ops team work backwards and say, okay, look, even if in the beginning, we're going to have to eat a little bit of that cost from shipping because we have to air something to a customer to get there tomorrow, we would provide our team with an Excel document of the origin zip code. So which warehouse is it going to ship out of, New Jersey or LA, and what is the destination and how many days in transit does it take? And then they would select the courier and shipping service accordingly. So it was very, very manual. There was a lot of Google Sheets going on. There was Google Calendars going on. It was all that stuff in the beginning that was happening. But once you start to really scale, those systems don't work anymore. And so fortunately, we were able to meet a couple of advisors out here in the LA area who really were able to understand what brands' problems were and solve for that. And so we implemented a WMS that was completely built out for us, built out an entire back end that had an API with UPS and FedEx. So when someone put in the date specific delivery that they wanted, it would backtrack it and tell us which courier to use, what shipping method to use. It would actually tell us, is UPS or FedEx cheaper because of its delivery? So it was all those things that help you as a small business to rate shop, because at the end of the day, as you save a little bit on cost, you can utilize that towards perfecting other areas of the business.
I love how much this impacts. Like, it feels like from the beginning, you had a dedication to the long term where you said, it might cost us a little bit and we might have to eat into our margins to get this to them at that date. But how much has that initial commitment impacted retention, now 5 years later, 6 years later, if I can do fast math well? How is that like, maybe you had to eat some in the beginning and do that scrappy work, but now you have this guaranteed delivery date. What's the trade-off there? And would your advice to a small business owner be to follow that, like invest hard in the beginning, eat some margins if you have to, but know that it's going to pan out in the long term?
100%. Anyone that asks me for advice, I say never ever skimp out on quality. That is the impression you're leaving on someone. So if you can cut costs and get someone a product where they can tell that costs were cut or that the delivery date was late, they're not going to shop with you, right? Unless you're really able to make that up. You might as well take that step where you cut into your margins and you're able to get the product, the experience exactly as the customer's expecting it, is really important from a retention perspective. We touched on that earlier. It's super important. You invest into a customer earlier, they become a customer of yours for life. That's something that I truly believe in. And so, investing into that early on was very important. We had customers early on that I would remember, like we had a customer in Ohio who placed an order and it was a VIP and it was like a Friday afternoon. They needed the product on Saturday night. And I was like, okay, well, one, we can't get all these products made in time. Yeah. Two, we're not going to be able to ship it out in time. And we created the product. We threw it into a delivery car, and myself and a buddy of mine got in the car and drove to Ohio from New York, made the delivery the next day. And the person was just like, hey, this actually arrived on time. The experience was there. We made no money from it. We lost money from it. But at the end of the day, it was impactful to where that customer and that VIP was won over. And that pays itself over 1,000 times, right? So it's very, very important to make sure that is something that people will never skimp out on, is quality and service. Those two things you need to make sure is locked in for your business.
And just to imagine that customer and the stories they're able to tell their friends of, I ordered these beautiful roses from this company, and the co-founder and somebody else drove from New York to make sure it was on time. That is an incremental story that you can't even measure the success on it, which is really what retention comes down to. And before we kind of move off the retention conversation, since we're talking about gifting, you touched on it, and I kind of want to I want to go deeper into it. A lot of your products are gifted by somebody else. So then this retention game is exponential times two. You're saying, okay, the person who bought it and also the person who received it. How have you thought about retention for that person who received it? How do you bring that person into your ecosystem when theoretically they aren't actually in your digital ecosystem? You don't have their data, you don't have their contact information.
For sure. So a lot of our clients like to, because that are receiving our product as gifts, like to show it off, right? So on social media and so on, right? And so anytime someone tags us, and our team will reply back, thanking them not only for being a supporter of the brand, but also showcasing how much they love the product. Letting them know subscribing to our newsletter is going to allow them to get early access to products, be up to date on when we release things and so on, notifying them about certain dates. So all that's really important. Something that we implemented, it was probably about 2 years ago now, was send a hint. So on our site, if you were on our website and you're like, hey, you know what, like one of my really close guy friends is looking for a gift for his girlfriend, let me send him a recommendation for VEF. You can send a hint, and now I've got your info too. And so, there's, for me, data wasn't something that I really understood prior to Venus. And the more that through the entire journey to where we are today, it's always been, I need to have my hands in every single department. Obviously, you have to hire up professionals to run that, but I still want to learn, right? I want to understand what each area of the business is growing with, how it's growing, what are the tools that grow that, so I can not only learn it myself, but also when someone comes to me and says, hey, like I have a business idea and I want to do this or that, what do you recommend? I can provide them valuable insight. And so, being able to really understand how useful data is, how many different ways you can grab someone's information, but also making sure you're not intrusive is important, right? SMS has gotten super big, but it's intrusive at the same time. You don't want to be blasting someone with emails or SMS all day and night. So really cracking the code on what does the cadence look like for your customer, understanding your customer is really important.
You just said the line that I have said probably more times than ever on the show, which is understand your customer. It's the most important thing that you can do. I'm curious, as you mentioned, like you didn't totally grasp how important data was. And there's this constant conversation of quantitative data and qualitative data, knowing your customers versus seeing the data. And as you're going through this learning process, also, I love how relatable this is to every small business owner who's entered into e-commerce in the last year, is going like, oh my gosh, there's all this data. What do I do with it? And this is a tricky question to answer, I'm sure, but do you have like a story or a moment or a learning from that data side that you want to share that was like, oh my goodness, like just something that really surprised you or was really exciting to learn on that side?
Yeah, I mean, from the data side of things, like really understanding for like our site from a merchandising perspective, what is converting more and why, right? So around holiday time particularly, are people looking for red roses, or are they used to seeing red roses on every floral site and they want to see baby blue, or they want to see hot pink, something that's a little bit different, right? Understanding for each consumer and what path they come in through. So the Snapchat customer, are they looking to land on a page that only has price points in a certain range versus somebody that's coming in from an email that's already been a customer? What are they tending to shop with? For our business, our product lasts for a year or longer. And so there is an anniversary element to our business. So understanding what is the right time to contact that customer and remind them about the anniversary. If it's a gift, figuring out ways that you can say, hey, you bought this product for this person as a gift. And because there's also data, again, we have our gift cards. So we get to understand keywords from our gift card. If you said, happy anniversary, I love you so much, and you selected April 1st as a delivery date, well, we know that's your anniversary. You didn't have to tell us. And having a curated element to that is so impactful. So, there's no real one moment, but it's more so just as you continue to understand how you can utilize data to continue to grow your business, the more fun it becomes in trying to really keep trying new things. that's what I would say to everybody that asks about, you know, how to utilize data, what to look for, and so on, is really just look at all the data, subscribe to so many different brands out there that you look up to, and understand how are they speaking to you. Are there if you abandon a cart for a website that you're shopping on, what does their abandon series look like, right? Are they hitting you with SMS? Are they intrusive? Do you find it to be too much? If so, then note down not to do that. But there's a lot of things that you can do just by shopping other brands as well.
Yeah, that is how I got my quote claim to quote fame, was being the retention person who said, oh my goodness, you can't see retention from the outside. The only way to do it is to be a customer at a lot of brands and figure out what you like and don't like. Also, what I'm really hearing out of this, like, ties so much back to the beginning of our conversation, is that you're looking at data in a way to inform the story that your brand is telling and the stories that your customers are living so that you can better that customer experience. Mm-hmm. Am I hitting on something there?
100%. You know, it's everything ties back to learning, right? Figuring out like what is working for your customers. If you can understand that, if you can segment customers in certain groups and understand that this is what's working in a test series, okay, now you can try that with the entire segment. It may prove itself in a positive way. And so always testing that and segmenting your customers is important. But it definitely ties back to the entire experience, making sure that it's just all true to your brand value of having for us, a luxurious experience from start to finish.
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned local flower shops, and I find it so cool and interesting that you guys have pushed into retail, you know, even expanding throughout the COVID pandemic, where people were saying like, retail is dying, retail is dead. Obviously, like, look at the sign behind me. It says resilient retail. I believe that retail will never die, that it will only be evolving because we are resilient. First off, I'm curious to hear kind of the story behind the why of opening retail. What was the strategy or the thought process behind saying, actually having our own retail stores would be a big benefit to the brand?
Yeah, for sure. You know, so we started out and still have a very strong e-commerce side of our business, right? Started out with trying to figure out how we can market for zero to no cost if we could through Instagram and Snapchat and so on. And so partnering with influence and all that was great. Still do it even until today, but you get the social user. But we're not a brand that's only meant for people that are utilizing social media and are living on social, if you will. And so my brother, actually handling the B2B side of things, was like, you know what, we're doing partnerships with banks and so on for gifting, but these are people that also like the brand, but they're not the ones that are on Instagram or Facebook and so on. And so we wanted to test it out by having a pop-up in a transit facility within New York City. So chose a location in the Oculus, ended up doing a pop-up during Christmas, and it was amazing because the Oculus in Manhattan is a transit hub. You've got people that are commuting on Wall Street and so on that may not be the ones that are utilizing, you know, social media, but they see a product and they're like, okay, well, that looks nice. Yeah. And I want to learn more about it. They learn about the brand. They become a customer of the brand. They still utilize their email, so I get to use them for the retention side of the business, right? And so that was sort of the first step into retail. We're like, hey, this is actually cool because we're tapping on a completely new customer. Started to grow that side of the business and started to get footprints within a couple of different Westfield locations in the New York, New Jersey area. And then grew into the West Coast eventually as well. And you know, earlier on, it was like, cool, this is becoming another area of revenue for the business. You know, what you just said about the pandemic. So people are just like, well, the pandemic hit and like now retail's dying. I think that everything happening, you know, everything that's always happening outside of even just a pandemic is a way for you just to sort of, you know, pivot. With the pandemic itself, for us, we were just like, you know what, we're not going to stop opening retail or pull back on retail. We're actually going to go harder on retail. Why? Because even though right now it's a higher carrying cost and you're minimized at the time with, you know, how many people are allowed to be in the store and the opening hours, and are people really wanting to go? It was a risk, but it's paying itself out because we converted our stores to being transactionally focused to experiential. We want people to walk in and learn about the brand and see product and see activations. We had a store in Westfield Century City in Los Angeles that had a massive like floral house. It was literally a house made of flowers, and
Oh.
people were loving it. They were walking around experiencing it, understanding, okay, I've seen your guys' brand with that product, but I've never seen the porcelain vessels or the glass vessels. I didn't know you did candles. And so building that experience is really important. And so that was really one of the biggest things with retail was, one, a new customer as a whole, but then two, going into an experiential moment that will grasp a customer in and convert transactionally.
Yeah. And now this brings in the clear question of the operations of a retail store, and especially for a product like yours. And I'm just thinking about this, in the transit station, in Oculus, there's probably people coming in and then they like get that brand experience. They see the product, but they probably don't want to always buy it and carry it out with them. So then we're talking about this entirely new operational supply chain that you have to think about, with whether that's local delivery or curbside pickup or buy online, pick up in store, or see in store, then go buy online. What has been that process for you as kind of looking at all the operations? How have you managed that, especially in tandem with owning two of your own distribution facilities?
Yeah, it's been super tough. As we built out our WMS, we also brought in someone who's got a lot of experience from the technical operation side. And so what we do with our retail facilities is, if someone walks in, they see a product they need or want that exact day, they can walk out with it.
Yeah.
If they want to actually create a custom arrangement, a floral advisor within our boutiques will actually walk them through the entire experience, create the arrangement there and then with them, and schedule delivery. Our WMS will actually show our retail stores what is available in each location. So if you said, I want something delivered in Manhattan tomorrow, but it's not available in our New Jersey facility, it'll check whether we've reached our cutoff in Los Angeles for it to be aired over or not. And so there's a lot of checks and balances that go into place in the back end of it, which early on was just insane. We're a brand that has tons of different box colors, shapes, sizes. We have 26 different rose colors. And so, when you look at it, we have over 1 million SKUs that are actually, and it's a challenge for us to be able to figure out, okay, how do we actually figure out what can and cannot be done? Do we have the two rose, if you wanted a custom arrangement in New York, do both of those rose colors exist within our one facility in New Jersey, and can it be created for a pickup that exact day or delivery for the next day? So a lot of operational things that go into sort of juggling a customer in store that wants something delivered. But we know that that's what people are after. They want to have a product that's customizable. It's super bespoke. It's true to them, right? If you said that you wanted a particular rose color in a particular box color and someone came in to buy that for you, that's what they want as your gift. And so it's important to us to make sure that our supply chain team is keeping enough inventory on hand in both facilities so that we can actually keep up with demand, not only from the e-com side, but for fulfillment for retail customers that might want something delivered.
Yeah, I love it. And we've seen out of the pandemic, even retail stores like you're talking about becoming their own mini fulfillment centers. And it's just creating this like quote omni-channel experience that can be so flexible with customer needs. And what I'm hearing from you is like everything comes back to that. Who is the customer? What do they want? And what experience can we give them? And how can then we go above and beyond with it? I would be remiss if I did not ask you this question. And I'm sure you get it all the time, but VEF is known for really supplying big celebrities with gifts and products and creations that are fantastic. Kim Kardashian immediately comes to mind. And then very recently, I was just watching kind of the Floyd Mayweather, Paul Logan fight and the documentary leading up to that. And inside of Floyd Mayweather's house, there are all these flowers with the Venus ET Fleur logo on them. And you see all of these beautiful placements in his house. I'm sure there are so many stories that you cannot tell, but can you give us any insight into just what that life is like, or what it's like to work with a client of that pedigree?
Yeah, it's challenging at times. They're leading busy lives, right? At the end of the day, they're involved in so many different things. They've got so much happening. And when they want something, they need it right there and then. We've had celebrities call in that had a concert performance and said, 4 p.m. in LA, saying that they needed a delivery of 20, 30, 40 different arrangements to a concert in 2 hours. And it's like, thank you for the notice, and we have to deal with it. Not only do we have to create it, but we also have to get through LA traffic pre-pandemic to get it delivered. So, it's definitely challenging, but it's also like very rewarding, not just for us as the founders, but more so for the team. You've got our designers who are creating arrangements, and they're putting everything into that arrangement to make sure it's perfect. And when someone actually posts the product or shows a product off, and we can actually track back to exactly which designer created that arrangement and show them and just say, look, that's the arrangement that you created, and that's what this person's showing off. It's like they take pride in that, right? We're also a brand that we want to have consistency with every single product. So, to your point of seeing all those arrangements inside of Floyd Mayweather's home or on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, those are the exact same styles and arrangements that consumers have the ability to also experience and buy either for themselves or as gifts, right? If someone orders something as a gift for someone in Dubai, like we want to make sure that it arrives in perfect condition so that experience is exactly as they've seen it, right? There should not be any difference between the experience. But yes, it's been challenging. It's been rewarding. It's a lot of learning that you get to take out away from it. But it's amazing to be able to deal with a lot of customers out there that are also people you look up to. There's not just like the artists or the musicians or the actors and actresses out there, but there's also like the businessmen and women that, like, for me, I look up to as well. You've got people that have started these amazing brands and are like creative directors for, like LVMH and all these other brands that have shown the product or been like a brand sort of not an ambassador, but they've shown you that they love the brand as well. And that's super rewarding for us because as founders, we look up to those people, and it's like you have the ability to see that they love what you're doing, and it's just like super rewarding.
What I am hearing as like almost a theme of this episode, which I almost want to like give a shout out to my writer, like, hey, episode title here is this idea that like luxury comes down to quality, but not just quality, consistency of quality, no matter what, whether it's Kim Kardashian or Kristen LaFrance or one single rose or 1,000 roses or LA or Colorado Springs. It's the consistency of the quality and the experience at every single touch point.
Exactly. That's the exact way that we look at it, right? We founded the brand because of a poor experience that I had with my now wife. At the time was just a girlfriend, right? And so it was like, I'm trying to impress somebody by sending them something. I'd spent so much time speaking to the florist and making sure it was perfect. And what was received wasn't what I had planned for. And that, at the end of the day, it's conveying a message on my behalf. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that every customer has the ability of conveying exactly what they see is what they get. That consistency is going to be there. That quality is going to be there. That experience is going to be just 100%, right? It's super important to us, and to never, ever cut a corner. As a brand where we position ourselves in the luxury world, we don't do discounting. And because we have quality and craftsmanship that goes into every product, right? There's so many moving parts. There's so many people involved with making sure that the product is absolutely perfect. And so there's a cost behind it. But at the end of the day, we want customers to experience that although there may be a higher price point for our product, once they experience our product, they understand and they become even more so immersed with the brand longer term.
The listeners are not going to be surprised by me pulling this out, but almost every episode I'm talking about your consumers are ultimately connecting with something bigger than the product. And some listeners may be listening and saying like, well, the thing that people are connecting with is the product. But I think you just pulled out like the golden nugget of it's not just the product, it's also what the product says. And if you're gifting the product, there is a big moment of what does this say about how I feel about you or what I'm sharing with you. And so for anybody listening saying, oh, it's the product quality, that's it. This whole conversation has been, it's product quality, it's operational quality, it's customer experience quality. And then it's also the quality of the delivered message that comes through the product. So it is bigger than the product itself. Sunny, I only have one last question for you. And we ask everybody on the show, as it is called Resilient Retail. And I think that everybody has their own unique take on what it means to them based on their life experiences, the business they're growing. But what does resilience mean to you?
I mean, for me, I think it's just always being able to sort of overcome any challenge, right? As an entrepreneur, there's always going to be hurdles that you have to get over. Fortunately for us, we decided early on that we want to grow extremely fast, and we have a lot of brand ambition, and that being one of those brands that just says I can do it all is not going to be good for us. So being able to hire like the right team that also has that same ambition as us, has those same values. They're like, I'm willing to fight day in and day out so that we grow the brand together. I'm willing to go above and beyond. I'm willing to work and help out in areas that maybe I wasn't hired for. Our team is what wins for us. And I say that to everybody, that if you really want to grow a brand, you need to have the right team and have a team that matches your mindset and your vision. And being able to overcome anything, especially in the last year, being thrown, an insane curveball with a pandemic, and being a young entrepreneur with a young team, being able to all fight together and overcome while staying completely safe and so on, has just like, it's been eye-opening for us to really show that like we have the best team, we have an amazing team, we have everyone that's working together, and that working hard together is what's really going to allow us to continue to accelerate our growth.
Yes. Resiliency lives within humanity. And so bringing it back to the humans who grow the brand and who also buy from the brand feels like such a powerful definition of resiliency to me. Sunny, thank you so much. I have loved this conversation, and I got like the surprise giddiness of going into retention. If there is any store that I hope that I get to come experience in the next year, it would be one of your stores to see the like amazing design and cool things you do. So I appreciate the time you've spent with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.